Hello, happy October, and welcome to Episode 6 of Cosmic Goblins, a fiction podcast exploring tales of cosmic horror, dark fantasy, sword and sorcery, sci-fi, and more. I'm your host, Alex Wolfgang. In honor of this holiday season, we're bringing you a tale from CHM alumni Jonathan Gensler, one that manages to combine witchcraft with high school football in an Appalachian town. Stick around after the story, because we'll be following it up with a chat with Gensler. Tommy the Leg Ain't No Witch appeared in CHM 63 last month. Be sure to stick around after the episode for a chat with Gensler. Let's get started. Cosmic Goblins presents Tommy the Leg Ain't No Witch by Jonathan Gensler. Sam told us about the wreck after his mom got called to the clinic on the emergency band, and he had to jet from the stadium before football warm-ups. We'd all felt the earth move and shift under us for a moment. But Sam didn't know much, only that there was a big accident up on Corridor G, some kind of mudslide, and that a school bus took the brunt of it. None of us thought much of it at the time. We had a game to get ready for. An hour later, Coach Thompson came in wringing his hat, his face both furious and incredibly sad. "Gents, the game is off." And that was it. He looked around at us, our team's meager 23 players, wiped away a tear, and muttered, "God damn it." I knew then God didn't have anything to do with this, at least not the God we all had a close and personal relationship with come Sunday morning up the Church of Holy God. Not that God. This weren't Jesus' doing. No, sir. This was Tommy the Leg. And me, I guess. And Sam. But not so much Sam, as he didn't want to be there. He was only there as I asked him to come, growing up down the holler from me and Tommy, and knowing all about the Leg's brother and all that. I guess he felt he had to be there. Plus, he was the one who got the helmet from the other locker room, because he was the one who had a truck. Now let me tell you, Tommy the Leg, he ain't no real witch. That's his granny. She's the one with the herb shack back in the woods, picking sassafras and those little plants with the long green smelly leaves that grow where the elm trees fell and rotted a few years back. She got her own stash of molly moochers somewhere up in the hills and brings a basket of them down every spring. Those things melt in your mouth after frying them up with a little butter. Anyway, his granny. She's the one who started all of this, if you ask me. She's the one who knows things. And Granny's the one with the book, luring folks in from all over the county with her tricks, her lore, her charms. Not Tommy. Tommy the Leg's just a little fuck-up and ain't have no blood on his hands, or his foot, as it might happen if he was named Tommy the Leg. We'd lost about 19 games in a row over the past 3 seasons, ever since we made varsity as sophomores. Not even Sam's 6'2" and 200 pounds of teenage brawn could help break the streak. And that boy could run the ball. You'd better believe it. A bit of a butterfingers, though, who couldn't always hold on to the damn thing. You try holding on to a football slick with coal-black mud, though. Ain't easy. But I ain't ragging on Sam no more. This ain't about him. Me, Sam, and the Leg, we was the 3 seniors on the team. And when Tommy came into the locker room last week and said he had a way to help us win, maybe, who were we to say no? When he told us what we had to do, though, Sam was about to run off and tell his dad, Pat Jones, a big man up at Extraction Plus, or maybe the pastor up at Holy God, though we didn't think he'd really do that. Pastor Jim didn't think much of the Jones family, them being all high and mighty and whatnot, and what was Sam really going to do? It was Cindy, though, who got him to stop. She and her curly brown hair and pleated skirts. She said her Gram and Tommy's granny were probably right. This weren't no magic spell like that. It was just asking the earth and the wind and the sun for a little help. Natural things. Things God had made. So what was Pastor Jim or Sam's dad going to do about it anyway? Bless Cindy, in any case. At least that was what we thought at the time. She told Sam that if he did this, she'd celebrate something special with him, and that was what did the trick. A blowjob in the cab of your F-150 will get you to do just about anything, even a little bit of granny witch magic to make the other football team lose. As soon as Sam's mind was given over to his prick, it seemed like we was all good. Sam would head up to Central High in Charleston, sneak a helmet out of the locker room after their practice while we was having our pregame spaghetti dinner, then bring it back to the clearing up on the hilltop overlooking the stadium in Oycott Junction. I'd bring the coal and fixins for the fire pit, and Tommy the Leg would bring the herbs and whatever else we needed. The helmet was the main thing, Tommy said, and then the fire. Said we were going to summon the true power of coal, something here in our mountains them city boys at Central didn't have no close personal relationship with. He'd overheard his gran talking with some of her lady friends at their quilting circle, talking about this power. They started speaking some other language, almost like Pastor Jim speaking in tongues on Sunday morning. But he could tell Gran was excited about it, and about the power to help the town. He'd found her special book, the one she kept back at the herb shack over the holler from my family's place. Said he figured out which pages they were reading from and found the goddess of coal. Now, I gotta tell you about one more person, and this motherfucker is probably the one who really caused the trouble and fucked all those other kids. Joe, Tommy's older brother. Joe's a wounded vet, see? He's 6 years older than us? Was a big shot in high school, but dumb as a lump of coal, and went off to the army rather than stick around here and work the mines. Came back missing half his leg, but weren't no real wartime injury. Just some training accident after the Gulf War was already over. Probably fucked it up himself, is what I say. Joe is a mean son of a bitch these days. He came back after Tommy had earned himself the name The Leg, and oh boy did Joe hate that. Said he weren't going to have no punk bitch leg in his family, not after he was airborne with the 82nd. But Tommy the Leg, well, he kept calling himself that, and Joe just fumed every time he heard it. Wasn't Tommy's fault either. The damn kid had kicked 4 field goals in one game back in middle school, beat Logan, and won the Tri-County Championship all by himself, 12-10. The girl started calling him Tommy the Leg for a bit, and he got it stitched up on a letter jacket and everything. Still, he's a kicker, and no one really cared much when we got to high school. But the name stuck. And that fucking airborne older brother of his hated it. He hated it so much that he essentially made sure that dam broke the next day. See, the night before, everything was going right. No one, not even Coach, wondered where Sam was during the team dinner. Sam said he was tired and needed to go get some extra rest before the big game, and Coach just believed him. Why wouldn't he? 3 hours later, as the last gasps of twilight were fading from orange to red to purple, the flat top of the ridge above the field glowed in the light of the moon, blood red and low in the sky, a sharpened blade ready to drop. I arrived first, with the bags of lumps of steam coal, newspapers and kindling to get the small fire going, and my butane lighter. I could feel something odd about the sight, the stars winking into existence above, and the flow of light from the sunken sun to the moon and back down to the little mountaintop. There was an energy there, and I knew Tommy the Leg had picked the right spot and time to do whatever we were going to do. A few minutes later, Sam's headlights broke the spell of the moonlight, the crunching of his oversized truck tires pulling my focus back to the present. He pulled up in a cloud of dust, hopping out with an asshole of a door slam. Seriously, bro? We're trying to keep this a bit on the DL. He threw a shiny silver football helmet at me. Catch, Butterfingers. Here's your stupid helmet. Where's the leg? I ain't got all night for this bullshit. Cindy owes me a BJ as soon as we're done here, and I'd much rather be getting my dick sucked than playing hide the rabbit here with you assholes. Tommy'll be here soon. Chill the fuck out, man. Sam pulled out a pack of smokes and lit one, leaning against the hood of his truck. Here he comes now. Only something was wrong. Tommy was hoofing it from the other direction, crashing out of the tree line opposite from the stadium and the road where Sam had arrived. He ran up, out of breath, hands on knees, eyes scanning around. Have you seen him? Who? Sam and I asked at the same time. He dropped to his knees and had a wide look in his eyes. Joe. He caught me going through Granny's stash and found the book open. Asked me what the fuck a dumb shit like me was doing with Gran's materials. Joe picked up the book and saw what I was reading from, the ingredients I pulled together, and growled at me, "What the fuck you think you're gonna do?" And then he threw the book down. "Stay right the fuck here, you little bitch." Then he left. I thought he was going to get Gran or something. I knew I didn't have much time, so I grabbed the stash and the book and took off. If he really did read the book, he'll know where I am. This is the only place high and clear enough to see the moon and the dying sunset. Tommy emptied the bag and told me to get building the fire. "Why ain't it built yet, Billy? I told you we needed to get this work done on time. Get it fucking built. If the moon goes all white, this ain't gonna work." I'd gotten caught in the magic of the light and lost track of time before Sam had arrived. I'd meant to have the fire going, but Tommy was right. There was a strange vibration, a mystical flux in the light that night, and I got the flames built and lit with a country boy's quickness. Sam scoffed at both of us. "What are we even doing here, Tommy? I just want to get my dick wet, and Cindy's hot little mouth is the only reason I'm even up here." We are breaking our losing streak, Sam. We're just doing something to help focus our minds and bodies on victory. A little spell I learned from Gran. That granny witch bullshit is just that. Bullshit. Then don't worry about it. But I know you want to win tomorrow and keep on winning. It sucks to lose week after week after week. And it sucks more than your girlfriend, and you know it. I jumped into the exchange. "Fellas, I hate losing as much as either of you. And whatever. If this is BS, then it's BS. But Tommy's Gran's been around a while, and I know people talk about her and her healing. My mom mentioned something once about a salve she made to help old Jim Reynolds get his second wife pregnant. Wasn't supposed to overhear it, but I did. That's the only reason I'm here. So seriously, let's stop fucking around and do this shit." Sam threw his smoke on the fire I'd just built. "All right, whatever. So long as we are out of here soon." Tommy grabbed the helmet from me and gave me a nod. He put a bundle of weeds from his satchel inside the helmet and placed it on the fire, lining up the front with the moon, now rising higher in the sky but still holding the last of its fiery orange tint. "Now focus, both of you, on what you want to happen tomorrow. Focus on winning, on strength, on victory." He began to chant something under his breath, something I couldn't quite understand. It was almost like he was speaking backwards, is how odd it sounded. And that's when everything went to shit. Over Tommy's mumbled speech, I could just hear our motorcycles rumbling, getting louder with each passing second. 1 minute, we were there, just the three of us, our eyes focused on the fire as it was just beginning to soften and melt the plastic of the silver helmet. And the next, the roar of a Kawasaki 800 coughed up over the ridge and slid to a stop beside the front of Sam's truck. Joe. He jumped off the bike and threw it to the ground, limping on his prosthetic. "What the fuck are you three boys doing?" I stood up from our circle to face Joe, but his eyes were locked on his brother. "I said, what the fuck you think you boys are doing?" Tommy hadn't noticed what had happened, eyes closed and lips moving, making those utterly incomprehensible noises. His hands shot out from his sides, then rose up like a preacher calling his flock to the altar. Sam jumped up, his broad shoulders wider than Joe's, and got in the way. "Slow the fuck down, broke dick." Joe's left arm snapped out like lightning and struck Sam in the throat. "Keep out of my way, devil worshipper." But while Sam collapsed to his knees choking, anger flared in his eyes, and crouching, he leapt up, tackling Joe, recklessly bringing them close to the fire. Joe rolled over screaming, bringing his arm up, covered in burning, melting plastic from the helmet. "I am going to kill you all." He scream-growled like a bear caught in a trap as his arm was consumed by the flames and limped over to Sam, still lying on the ground, holding his throat. Looking back, I know that's what did it, what changed the spell. He fucked the whole intention of what we were doing. It wasn't just about winning anymore. I stood up and shouted at them to stop. I was a goddamn running back, not a linebacker, but I launched myself at Joe and brought him back down, pinning his burning arm under his body, putting out the flames. He was breathing hard, panting almost like a dog. Behind me, Tommy stood up. "It's done, and let's hope you didn't screw it up, Joe, like you do everything else." Sam was massaging his throat, lying next to me beside the fire, as I sat on top of Joe, his unharmed arm locked in a half Nelson behind him. "She's coming." Tommy the Leg's voice was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was louder, rumbling, like from the earth. "She's coming," he repeated. "She's coming." And I guess we know what happened, don't we? She, whoever she is, this coal goddess or demon or whatever, well, she came. Can you even believe it? What happened? I just sit and think what it must have been like. All those fucking kids like us, coaches, cheerleaders, just coming down on a Friday afternoon for a game they were most likely going to win. Probably singing songs together like we do. I can hear their voices singing Van Halen or Bon Jovi, one of the big hits you see on VH1's Totally 80s. Maybe the bus starts to swerve and one or two people scream, but you can't hear it over the chorus. Whoa, we're halfway there. And then more people look up to the right and see the dam collapsing, and this wall of black ooze rushing down at them from the hilltop. Whoa, living on a Then bam. The flood of toxic sludge hits them like the Red Sea drowning Haman's army. All of them screaming now. Probably the glass broke, or maybe they had a few windows open because school buses are hot as sweaty balls. That wall of muck flows right in through the windows, even as the bus is knocked sideways, flipped over, and shoved along the valley floor, knocking into some of the houses in the valley. The bus fills up with the black, the liquefied coal dust and heavy metals and pure fucking cancer. And those kids, the ones who should have gone home winners a few hours later, they all fucking died. Choked on it. The only thing we had to give them. Like that dimwit reporter Charles Montani said on the local news next day. They came to the coal fields and got what was always waiting for folks at the end of the day. He said it was poor maintenance, a series of bankruptcies shielding the rich assholes at the top from any responsibility. And in the end, the retaining wall failed at the exact wrong time. And god damn it, Joe did it. All of it. Y'all need to know, Tommy the Leg, hell, he's just a kicker. Cole is here, probably to stay, and I don't know if we know what she's going to do next. Jonathan Gensler grew up in a haunted house in West Virginia. He has stories in Cosmic Horror Monthly, On Spec Magazine, and Creepy Pod, among other venues. A combat veteran and recovering entrepreneur, he lives in the Rocky Mountains with his wife and 3 children. You can connect with him online at jonathangensler.com. Let's have a chat with him. Hi, Jonathan. Welcome to Cosmic Goblins.
Good morning. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to be here and join you today.
Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So tell us a little bit about how this story came together. Was there a spark that kind of led to the full thing, or did you kind of conceptualize it all at once?
This Tommy the Leg had its origins in a workshop I was taking part in. And it's a kind of a themed write a short story every week for 10 weeks type of a workshop that I'm sure if you're a short story writer, you've probably participated in something like that.
Sure.
And the theme for this particular week was witchcraft, write a witchcraft story. And as a man who spent his childhood in the mountains of southern West Virginia, when I tend to write supernatural stories, I tend to place them there or something else from my experience. So I wanted to have a witchcraft story that was set with a particular flavor of Appalachian witchcraft, which was my expertise. So that was the origins of the story, and then I wanted to flip it on its head and not have your typical female woman witch be at the center of it. I wanted it to be someone who didn't know what they were doing, and and because of their maleness, really mess it up. I didn't want it to be a successful story of witchcraft, and so I placed it as a bunch of high school boys. It was really just trying to turn the story of witchcraft on its head and tell a story that I hadn't really heard before and didn't think had been done quite like this. So uh, that was really the origins of it, and the details of the story I told largely from my own life. There's a lot in this story that's based in fact. It's based in fact in my own history.
Gotcha. Did you play football back in West Virginia?
I did played football in middle school and high school, and then in college as well. And my high school football team was not very good, much like the team that we see in this story. I think the best record that my high school team had my senior year, we were 5-5. But the year that this story is really taken from, and this part of the story is true. We were my junior year we ended up 3-7. Not a stellar record. And several of the people on the team really were unhappy with how the team was performing. We had a big game coming up with what was to be our kind of largest rival, and a really great team. One of my teammates actually went and stole a helmet from that team. And we did actually burn it in a little ritual the night before the game.
Interesting. Okay.
And we did win that game the next day, against the team that went on to be undefeated the rest of the season and ended up playing in the state championship game.
Wow.
So our 3-17 beat them at their homecoming 7-6. Was it because we performed a ritual by burning one of their helmets the night before? I don't know. But I remember that to this day. I remember doing that. I remember thinking this is we didn't know what we were doing, and it happened. And so that was nothing terrible. There were no tragedies involved with this. It was just a high school football game. But the origins of the story are certainly there.
So this is what happened. This is what would have happened if things had gone terribly differently.
If things had gone terribly differently, perhaps we would have released an ancient demon from the mountains.
I'm curious because that region of Appalachia has a lot of sort of unique folk traditions and beliefs and things. Did any of those kind of come through in the story? Is there any true legend of the coal goddess?
So the region of West Virginia where I grew up, and really probably much of Appalachia, has a very deep Scots-Irish heritage. It's where immigrants came and were sent from the coasts into the mountains into the mines. And so they ended up settling in the mountains, working in coal mines, and they brought with them their folklore and heritage. And part of that is the Irish mother of demons, who is known as Coronach. And many times she's also just called Coal. So kind of a nickname for Coronach, the mother of demons, and an Irish legend is Coal. She was born out of the corpse of the hag killed by Finn McCool, who was called Cura Khan, and out of that witch hag's corpse was born the mother of demons, Coronach. And in my story, in the Irish legend, she was ultimately defeated and banished by St. Patrick, but people bring their gods and demons with them when they travel across the world. And in this story, those Scots-Irish immigrants into Appalachia brought their legends uh, of their demon goddess buried in the mountains with them,
Hmm.
and that she is ultimately who I envision being released by these by these boys messing around with powers they don't understand.
Can you say her name
Uh,
one more time?
uh, Coronach or
Okay,
Coronach, yeah, it's like
interesting.
Caoranach.
So
Coronach.
is it total coincidence that it sounds a little bit like coal? I mean, obviously not exactly on, but
I think it is. It to me, it was a nice coincidence. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the roots of coal, the rock that we dig and burn.
sure, sure.
But it sounds like it. And then her nickname is like you see references to her as coal.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe there's some kind of deeper, ecological history that I am unaware of that is tied to that. That I don't believe so. I think it was just a nice coincidence that I latched onto for the story.
Yeah, I
And
mean
then
it
tying
works.
into the coal impoundment dam. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it works really well in the story, and it kind of made me wonder a little bit because I know that a lot of the sort of coal communities in that region have kind of a mixed. It's a blessing and a curse, I guess you might say, because coal brings in money and jobs and all that, but it's also dangerous and toxic and
Oh yeah, absolutely. Being from the region, I certainly have a love-hate relationship with the coal industry. You know, I grew up in the only of 55 counties of West Virginia where there is no coal extraction. There are no coal mines in the county I grew up in. I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, but Huntington was a rail hub, and the rest of the coal from southern West Virginia was railed into Huntington and put on barges on the Ohio River to be sent up and down to power plants and steel mills along the Ohio in the Ohio River Valley. So certainly, I saw a lot of coal come through. We went and we played. I ran through the hills and played sports against teams. I played a football game in a valley that was just black coal dust, and
oh
we finished
wow.
the game after a night of rain the night before. Everyone on the field was pitch black because the mud was saturated with coal dust. The field sat under a mountaintop removal coal mine, a big strip mine, and it was black. Everything was black as coal. Uh, so
There,
certainly had experiences there, and like you said, it's a boom or bust economy. It's mostly bust now, and it's an economy that a lot of folks are worried about moving away from, shifting away from. And so there's a lot of, it's a complex cultural situation more than an economics. I think if we were just looking at the economics, the state would be like, we need to diversify away from this instead of continuing to try to double down. And there's certainly a lot of people there who are trying to do that, but there's certainly a complex legacy, if nothing else, because for 150 years they've been mining coal. They're still mining coal, uh, and it has impacted the culture and the towns and communities, probably down to the DNA. It's just something that you don't speak against, or there'll be significant consequences. I've spent my time speaking out against it,
sure, sure.
and have dealt with consequence. People wouldn't talk to me for years because of my stance on coal and the destruction that it wreaks, which we see in this story. The flood, the breaking of the impoundment dam we have at the end is also based on the Buffalo Creek disaster of the 1970s, when something very similar happened, flooded a whole town. Hundreds of people were killed, I believe. But also that the state is littered with these things across the state. You have these impoundment dams where this coal slurry taken from the processing of coal and is left in these dams. Um, Several of them, if not the majority of them, are fairly poorly maintained. Companies that built them they go bankrupt. It's the MO of the coal industry is you set up small LLCs for these operations. Companies run them, and then the parent companies let the smaller ones go bankrupt and leave the environmental cost with those bankrupt entities. So it falls onto the state to take care of them, and the state's underfunded because the coal industry has the state in its pocket. And so you have unmaintained coal impoundment dams across the state, some of them literally right above elementary schools and small
Wow.
towns. One day they will fail. They will fail. And these little communities will suffer. That's a very real threat.
Yeah, it's
Does
brutal.
no coal goddess, no mother of demons needed.
So, something, I mean, you're not in West Virginia anymore, correct? You moved out to
I'm no
the,
longer in West Virginia. Most of my family is still there,
okay,
but I live out west.
gotcha. And what was the spark that led to you moving away from that community? Was it those cultural differences, so those different opinions, or was it something different?
No, I left when I graduated high school. I went to West Point and then was served time in the Army after I graduated, and I've lived all over. I served in the Army in Colorado. Loved living it. I grew up in the mountains. I don't like wide open flat spaces. I grew up in the hollers of West Virginia,
Hmm.
uh, and I really loved. The first time I came out west of the Rockies, I was like, I thought I knew what mountains were, but those are mountains.
Hmm.
Um, and my wife and I we ultimately ended up moving out here. We've lived all over. We lived in Boston and New York City and in Nashville for a while. We always knew we were going to come out to the Rockies because it felt like home the first time I came, and it felt like home the first day we moved out here. So I think we're home now. We don't plan on leaving, and it's a great place to live, to be next to the Rocky Mountains.
It is beautiful out there.
Different than the Appalachians. The
Yeah.
Appalachians are also very beautiful. The Rockies, they're a different beast.
Hmm. Yeah, I try to head out to the Rockies once a year or so, kind of a yearly pilgrimage, just because I love it out there as well. I'm from Oklahoma,
Yeah.
so I'm used to the
Okay.
wide open spaces, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's not too far.
No, it's just southeast of us.
Mhm.
I don't think does the top left part of the Panhandle isn't that hit Colorado? Don't you
Yes,
have a small border with
there
Colorado?
is a very small border. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the western tip of the Panhandle. You're right.
Yeah. So you're a neighbor.
Yeah, yeah. So how long have you been writing? Were you writing since you were a kid, or was it more of a thing you picked up in adulthood?
I did write as a kid. I wrote in middle school and high school, short stories and poetry. Um, I have told this story a few times, and you tell stories about your history enough, and then you start, is that real, or is that a story that I told? But I believe that it's real. I wanted to be like, you're in middle school, and you have career days, and I remember seventh or eighth grade going in and talking to whatever my guidance counselor or small group teacher, whoever it was, about the career and what I wanted to have. And at this point, I had written several short stories, and I told my teacher that I wanted to be a writer, and I was told that's not a real job. I'm in a fairly small town in West Virginia. They probably never had anyone who made a living writing come out of the town, at least not at that point that anyone knew. I was told it's not a real job, and I needed to pick something else that would be wasting my potential by wanting to go and be a writer. That I was too smart, or too gifted in math and science or whatever. And that was when I was in middle school. I Despite me serving in the army, I've always been quite an anti-authoritarian. And being told that, I decided I was going to go and find a much more ridiculous job that I was going to do, and I was going to go find someone who did that job, so they can't tell me it's not a real job. So I went and found someone who does like large scale wood carvings, and like bears and like large wood carving things. And I found a guy who lived back in a holler, and that's what he did. He made large wood carvings, and I went out and interviewed him and talked about it. And I came in and presented that as, this is the job I want. I want to be the guy who carves, these large bears, and that's the job I want. Uh, so I kind of went more creative, more I don't know, small scale, even less potential for building a career than what they wanted. to make this long story short, I didn't write then. I wrote a little bit when I was in college at West Point, not a ton, more poetry. And then I went into the army and I journaled, but I stopped writing. I think I probably, when I got out of the army in '05, I don't think I wrote for 15 years other than business stuff. I went into business, went and got a couple of master's degrees on energy and energy technology, public policy, and worked in tech for 15 years and clean tech, solar and batteries and stuff like that. My father died in 2019, pretty tragically young from a really violent form of dementia. And I went to therapy for it and started journaling through my grief, trying to remember stories about my dad, to process his death. And in that instance, those stories about my dad started created this spark in me. And I just started seeing stories everywhere. I was living in Nashville at the time. And I just started imagining stories of everything that I see. I was running my own business at the time. And then I started writing. And this was 2021. I started journaling really in kind of 2020, right before COVID started. And then COVID hit and I had a third newborn. And in 2021, I really started writing a lot. And I wasn't able to put time into either the writing or my business. My business had been successful enough, and I ended up making the decision to sell the business I'd started to write full time. It wasn't because I didn't love the work. I was doing energy work with home builders, and it was great. So other stories I've written that are centered in that industry, but I wanted to write, and so in 2022, started doing it full time. Started submitting stories. CHM was actually my very first acceptance. My
That's
very
awesome.
first published story was in CHM number 35 in January of 2023. Pretty much since then, I've been writing full time, moved cross country, had close to 20 stories published now.
And if I'm not mistaken, a few of them were in CHM. I think this was maybe your fourth?
This was my fifth.
Fifth, okay.
My fourth in the magazine. I've had one on the Patreon, which will be coming out in the magazine, I guess, at the end of this year, the 13th issue. So, yeah, five stories with CHM, which is really great. It's nice to know that, I've submitted a lot. I've submitted a lot of stories to CHM, but 5 stories that, yeah. So my voice obviously is. Some people there think that my voice is a good fit, and I love reading the magazine, so I'm not surprised. So I think
yeah. A lot of really talented writers have gotten their start at CHM. It's beautiful to see.
It really is.
Yeah. And I know that a couple of the stories that have been published in CHM are available on our website. So anyone listening to this, go to the CHM website and search for Jonathan Gensler. But what other stories have you written that have come out recently that other people can check out if they really enjoyed this one?
Oh, if you really enjoyed this one, so if you like the setting, one of my CHM stories, I don't know if it's free to read online. I actually don't think it is, but you can find it by going to back issues. It's called "This Morning I Was Still a Paper Boy." It's set in West Virginia. It's about a paper boy on his morning paper route who encounters an otherworldly experience that turns very violent in the mists of the hollers of West Virginia on his paper route in the morning. One of my very favorite stories is free to read online. It's also a CHM story. It's called "Don't Tell." It is a ghost story set at West Point, which is also based on a couple of facts in my life. I give a content warning. It does feature suicide. It is about a cadet who commits suicide because he was gay under "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," and his gay boyfriend had just been killed in combat, and then he comes back to haunt his roommate, tell him not to tell people that he was gay because he doesn't want his legacy. He doesn't want people to know. It's still under wraps. It's a "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" story, and which ultimately I think has a much more positive message at the end about acceptance and healing and honor and integrity. It's a long one. Don't tell. And then earlier this year, I published a story called Taturovka, which came out through the Bizarro community on bizarrocentral.com. They have a flash fiction Friday. And Taturovka, it's a Russian word that means, tattoos, but it also kind of shares the similar meaning of tattoo with just think of like a Scottish tattoo, a martial drum beat that the military would use to march to. So tattoo has both that dual meaning, and the same with the Russian word Taturovka. And Taturovka takes place in eastern Ukraine, kind of present day. It is about a brother going to try to find his sister who has volunteered on the front, and encounters a monstrous soldier who believes that if he cuts the tattoos off of people he has killed and sews them to his own skin, they give him power. And
Brutal.
he goes to the front, kind of beyond the front, into the full destruction of eastern Ukraine to try to find and rescue his sister from this monster. I really love that story. I read that story. It's short, it's flash, it's about 1,000 words, but I'm writing something much longer related to that as well. So those are kind of the things I have out now. The story from today, Tommy the Leg. It's on the Stoker recommended reading list this year.
Oh,
So
congratulations! That's awesome.
someone showed it to me. It's like, hey, his story is on the, it's the early list, but that means people have recommended it for the Stokers. So that was really exciting. So if you really liked listening to this today, yeah, if you feel so inclined and you're a member in good standing of the Horror Writers Association, maybe go and check it out. And if it gets enough recommendations, it might make the final ballot.
Awesome. I wish you luck. That's a pretty huge honor.
It's pretty exciting. One of my friends looked at the list and sent it to me. He was like, "Hey, you're on this," and I was like, "Oh, it's early." So it's very cool that someone read the story and liked it enough and recommended it. That like even if one person did that, that's a pretty good feeling. The story connected with somebody.
So you mentioned that you were writing a longer piece that's related to your Ukraine story. My next question was just going to be, what are you working on and what's coming out next? Whatever you're willing to reveal.
Oh, sure. Very happy to do so. The thing that's most pressing, I'm working on an adaptation of another short story of mine. This short story has a very long title. The short version of it is The Return of the Essex. The Essex being the whaling ship that was sunk in 1820 by an enraged sperm whale that attacked it. The survivors had to resort to cannibalism to survive over hundreds of days at sea. It inspired the novel Moby Dick by Melville, and like a few years ago, In the Heart of the Sea. That story about the Essex is very well known. I wrote a short story about the captain of the Essex set 25 years later, when he was kind of washed up, and had been the night watchman of Nantucket. No one would let him on a boat again. I wrote a story about what if the Essex came back to haunt him as the night watchman.
Very cool.
I'm adapting that into a piece of musical theater with a really good friend of mine who's a professional singer, using sea shanties as the musical foundation. And we've been working on it for several months. We're doing on Halloween night. He's in LA. We're doing a table read and sing, like at an evening Halloween party. I'll join via Zoom to be kind of the narrator, because it's not full production. And then right now we're planning on having like a full staging of it next summer in Los Angeles that he's putting together. So I guess I'm adding. He calls me a librettist. He's a professional opera singer. So he says I am the librettist and writer. So I'll add that to my. That's a really fun project.
Very unique, very cool.
Very unique. Sea shanty lace ghost story set in an 1840s whaling bar, and it's about these men who survived 25 years later as they're suffering PTSD and anxiety and depression and rage, and the past comes back to demand accounting. for their actions and for their survival. And then another thing I'm working on, I have my first novella. I can't wait to make an official announcement. I think it's going to come out in the first half of next year if everything goes according to plan. It's just publishing, so who knows? But it's almost done. I'm on kind of my third round of revisions with my editor on that. It's a novella. It's a weird, bizarre story, and I'm excited to share when I can. And then I have another short story that's almost done, finished. It's going to be an anthology next year. So several things in the works. As soon as I get this novella done and the musical done, I have a rough outline of a novel that I'm going to dive into. So that's probably going to be the next 6 months of my life, and probably some short stories in between there to break it up. But it's probably going to be either another novel set on Nantucket about a military veteran who's also haunted by his past. He's a former, no one has a claim to this story. He's a former special operations soldier and later mercenary who encountered the Russian mafia later in his career and decided he needed to run away and hide. And he's hiding on Nantucket with all the money he made as a mercenary. And again, this is years later. He starts seeing the people that he killed over his career pop up on the island in his day-to-day life, staring at him. Like, as he's a mechanic and a maintenance guy, and the faces of the people that he's killed they are appearing in random places on the island, and started interfering with his life. And kind of that's the premise, that's the setup.
Very
so
cool.
That's gonna be him going back and forth trying to figure out why is his past coming back to demand justice? Why are these things coming back to him now? And that's probably going to be the first one. It's either going to be that or going to be the Ukraine novel, and the Ukraine novel may be tied into that. It might be separate. Things aren't clear in the early stages. So yeah, lots of stuff on the docket.
Yeah. 2026 sounds like it'll be a very exciting year for you, and I guess the rest of this year too. Yeah,
the rest of this year. Yeah, I'm really excited about this musical and getting
awesome.
the novella time.
Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the show. We appreciate it. We love your story, and hopefully we'll get to do another adaptation of one of your works. CHM keeps publishing you, so
keep publishing me. You publish a lot of really, really good stories. So I'm really honored that you chose this one. I love this story. Again, just because so much of it is tied to my personal history.
Yeah.
I wrote it from my heart, kind of a love letter to high school football in Appalachia in a weird way, in a very strange way. But thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you later, Jonathan.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Cosmic Goblins. If you're enjoying the show, we would be so grateful if you took a moment to leave a rating or a review or a follow wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back in 2 weeks with episode 7. See you next time.